Hello everyone, welcome to the video. In today's video, we are going to discuss about MCP server. We will see what a MCP protocol is, what is the use of MCP server, and how we can create a MCP server in Microsoft ASP.NET Core. We will see the uses of Model Context Protocol SDK for C Sharp and how you can create multiple tools and how you can use these tools to invoke external APIs, external file systems, or DB systems. So let's go through this video. So now let's try to understand what Model Context Protocol or MCP is. This is the official documentation for Model Context Protocol. MCP is a standard way that lets AI models communicate with external tools, apps, and data source in a structured and secure way. Think of it like a common language between an AI and outside world. In simple terms, it tells the AI how to request data or actions. It defines how tools should respond back. It keeps everything organized, consistent, and safe. Without MCP, AI is mostly limited to what it already knows. With MCP, it can fetch real-time data from APIs or database, use tools like sending emails, booking service, act more like a real assistant instead of just answering questions. In this diagram, we can say that if we have multiple interface like a chat interface, IDE, or other AI applications that are going to use an agent, and we can have an MCP which can interact with our backend APIs, file systems, and development tools. So in real time, we can use MCP to fetch the data from our backend systems, Git repositories, other tools, and provide it to a LLM model, and LLM model can get the real-time data. In this video, we will create a MCP server in Microsoft.NET technology. We will use SDK provided for Microsoft.NET for MCP, and we will try to create multiple tools in MCP server. We will try to invoke that MCP server from an agent. So let's try to learn it. We will be using C Sharp Model Context Protocol SDK to create MCP server. To create MCP server, you will need a .NET SDK in your local machine. You can use IDE like Visual Studio, VS Code, or Rider. I will be using Visual Studio on my local machine to create MCP server. In this video, we will use Model Context Protocol ASP.NET Core Nugget to create the MCP server. MCP server basically is collection of tools. A tool is nothing but via which we can execute API calls, DB queries, or perform computations. Via MCP server, we can also provide context to resources like files, DB schema via URI. Now let's jump onto Visual Studio and create a MCP server, and we will try to call an existing API through that MCP server. Later on, we will invoke created MCP tools via an agent. Now, we will create a MCP server in Microsoft.NET Core. We will use Model Context Protocol ASP.NET Core SDK to create this MCP server. We will also see how to create a tool inside this MCP server, how to call an external API endpoint from this MCP tool, and in the last, we will see how you can invoke this MCP tool from an agent. So let's go through it. Here I have opened the MCP server that I have created in .NET Core project. In this project, we are using Model Context Protocol .ASP.NET Core SDK to create this MCP server. Let's go to the program.cs. In program.cs, you need to register your tools class with services with add MCP server method. Also, you need to add map.mcp method to set up endpoints for handling MCP requests. We are using text calculator MCP turn to invoke this MCP server. Text calculator MCP tool class is decorated with attribute MCP server tool type. Once we use this attribute over a class, it indicates that type contains methods that should be exposed as MCP server tools. In this, we have defined a calculate text method and we are using attribute as MCP server tool, which indicate that method should be considered as MCP server tool. This method takes two parameters, municipality and tag state. On the basis of that, it calls an API endpoint which is running currently in my local. For demo purpose, I am running this and hosting it in my local host. From the input municipality and tag state, and by calling this external API point, MCP tool will give the text for given municipality and text date. So this is the basic purpose of MCP server. MCP server acts as a bridge between a LLM model and agentic orchestration and our API ecosystem, your DB server, your file system, where you want to retrieve real-time data by calling API endpoints from your database. You can use a MCP server, and by calling a specific MCP tool, you can fetch the data from your specific API endpoints, DB server, or file system. Now let's see what this API endpoint is. We will see in this Swagger URL for this API, which is hosted currently in my local machine, and we execute this endpoint. It is giving me tags for given municipality and tax state. So same we will use when we will invoke this MCP tool. Let's run this MCP tool. Now it is running in my local machine. Let's go to VS Code and see how we can invoke this MCP tool from an agent. To call a MCP tool from agent, we need to configure an mcp.json file which resides in VS Code folder, your URL for your MCP server. Since my MCP server is currently running on localhost 5218 port, I have configured this. In settings.json, enable Copilot chat MCP enable to true so that we can access this tool from our Copilot chat. In your Copilot chat, you can see what are the MCP server listed. So here if you see, it is giving us text calculator MCP, which is in stopped state. We will start this server and it can see that it has discovered one tool. Since in our MCP server we have currently one tool. Now let's ask in the agent what we want to ask or what we want to get from the MCP tool. So I have typed it. Please give me tags for consensus for date 6/1/2020, and agent will invoke a specific MCP tool to fetch this data, and please keep in mind it uses the description given on the tool to get an idea which specific tool. So here in this calculate text method we have given the description. This tool will be used to calculate text for given municipality and text date. See, it is calling text calculate MCP server and it is using these parameters and it is giving us text for consensus 0.6. So from this way you can also invoke this MCP tool from your agentic orchestration or any other agent. Hope this video gives you an idea of what MCP server is, what is the purpose of creating tools inside MCP server, and how you can create a tool in ASP.NET Core with a model context protocol, ASP.NET Core SDK, how you can invoke a specific tool from an agent. For our demo purpose, we use Copilot chat to invoke a MCP tool. That's it in today's video. Hope this video was informative and helpful. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe the channel. Thank you and see you next time.